What is going on, Washington fans? Welcome to Bleacher Report. And on this stream, I'm going to tell you my most impactful rookies, some of those underrated rookies that aren't getting talked about enough. And in my opinion, it could be, just big time value picks that Washington had, or maybe guys that I think could also be getting a lot more playing time than others could expect based on how the depth chart can kind of fall. But first off, let's just take a look at some of the draft picks, just like an overall view of who was selected. Of course, I got to throw some undrafted free agents in there as well, because I was actually a huge fan of this draft class. But then also the free agency afterwards with all the undrafted free agents. In my opinion, I think they hit a home run on a lot of these positions and a lot of like I said, value picks with some of these guys. And there's some talks about the Jon Newton pick and stuff like that, even this morning going around. So I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to throw him in here as well because that dude is a beast. And I don't think fans realize how good he is. But let's just do a quick overview, like I said, going through just a reminder of who Washington picked. So the second overall pick was Jaden Daniels. He's not really a underrated rookie. I think he's going to be a very impactful rookie quarterback, future of the franchise. I'm excited for Jaden to be here. Then I said, Jon Newton with pick 36, probably the steal of the draft. And then with the trade and everything going on, Washington has the 50th overall pick. They take Mikey Sanders still out of Michigan. Impactful corner. Leader, a dog, a ball hawk. And then at pick 53, my guy, Ben Sinnott, tight end from Kansas State. Love Ben. Can't wait to see him here. I think he's got potential to be a high upside tight end in this league. I'm excited to see what he does. And then Brandon Coleman, they have him listed as a guard. He can play both. I'm going to talk about him as well. I think this is a guy that, of course, a position. A lot of fans are like, oh no, here we go. We need a top offensive tackle. What's going on? Who's this guy? This isn't one of the guys we were, kind of hoping for. Don't worry. Don't freak out. I'll tell you why. And then Luke McCaffrey, the wide receiver, ending out things in the round 3 at pick 100. Trading with San Francisco, getting that pick 100. It's funny because, it's a long-term booking, as they like to call it in like wrestling. We get pick 100, that comp pick from San Francisco a while back. And, of course, we take Luke McCaffrey, who is the brother of Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco, who Adam Peters was over there, obviously loved Christian McCaffrey, and he said he talked to him before this pick. So it just kind of works out like that. We got pick 100 from San Francisco, and we use that to take Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey. And Luke is a dog. He's definitely going to be one of my guys. It's funny because I didn't want to select, too many of these draft picks because, honestly, I think all of these guys are underrated to a certain extent. But I was just looking at who I think could really have an impact year one. I think Luke McCaffrey could be one of those guys. Another one of these intriguing prospects, Jordan McGee, linebacker out of Temple, one of the more athletic linebackers in the entire draft. And this was a weird linebacker class. It was kind of... not a lot of people liked it. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. before the season was projected to go like first round. He falls way down. It's just a really weird linebacker class. But I think Washington potentially got one of the guys who could stick around for a while. And then we have Dominique Hampton in the 5th round out of Washington, a safety, another one of these long-rangey safeties that Dan Quinn loves. And then Javonte Jean-Baptiste, edge out of Notre Dame, ending it in round 7, pick 222. So let's talk about some of these underrated rookies. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about Jaden Daniels. I think Mikey Sanders, still people are kind of doing their homework on him, but I have to just talk about Jon Newton real quick. He really wasn't going to be one of my guys, but then I see all the talks, just like people, and even this morning, fake accounts out there saying like, oh, it's a messy situation. It's not a messy situation when you get a top 15 pick at pick 36. He's 6'2", 295, so he's kind of shorter for defensive tackles, but so is Aaron Donald. But I just want to look at production and impact. The guy's a beast, first off. When you watch Illinois, and I watched a good bit of the games, this guy stood out on every single play. There's not a series where you're like, where you're just amazed. You're like, this guy doesn't take a play off. This guy does not take a series off. Jon Newton is the leader on this entire defense. He played with Quan Martin. They, talked afterwards. So they're going to be reunited here. Let's just look at the production from Jon Newton. People say he was often unblockable, piling up 18 sacks and 27.5 tackle for losses in his career. He had 102 quarterback pressures since 2022. That is first among all defensive tackles in college football. And last year, he led Illinois with 7.5 sacks. When we got this guy at pick 36. And people are like, oh, well, we already have John Allen. We already have John Payne. Listen to what Adam Peters said at his press conference after these picks. He said they had Jon Newton graded substantially higher. That's his quote, than any other player left on the board. They could not believe he was there. I couldn't believe he was there. I could not believe that the Falcons drafted Rook over Johnny Newton. Like, mind blown. Absolutely mind blown. The production is there. The skill set. And I'm going to say something that it's going to be a hot take. And I don't mean for this to be a hot take. But if we come back to the end of the season, I would not be surprised if Jon Newton led the team out of I'll say defensive tackles. I'll say defensive. If he led the defensive tackles in sacks, I would not be surprised. He is super productive. Like I said, 7.5 PFF credit him, 8 sacks last season. Whatever. It was a lot for defensive tackle. We've seen those spurts out of John Allen and Ron Payne where they've had a season, those contract years where they just balled out, put up big numbers. It's super hard to find defensive tackles in the league that can be disruptive when it comes to stopping the run, which he did really good at, by the way, 7.4% run stop, really good, but also can rush the quarterback on the way. You're stopping the run on the way of the quarterback, but then vice versa. And he has this switch that he can, get, off and on so fast where it's like, all right, I'm in run stop mode. Or it's like, okay, I need to go into pass rush mode. But the discipline, you're not giving up these wide open lanes. You're doing it at a very sound technique way. And that's what Johnny Newton does. And I'm going to break down videos on all these guys, some all 22 and show you every draft pick and maybe some of the undrafted free agents as well as we kind of get to mini camp and stuff. But I was so impressed by just how much he was in the backfield. I covered Penn State for 2 years, and I remember watching those Penn State games, and I'm like, this guy is killing the offensive line, like to the point where we were like, what's wrong with this offensive line right now? It's like, no, Jon Newton is just that good. He takes over games, and you can get a guy like that. And, John Allen's getting older. I can't remember how many years he has left on his contract, but Johnny Newton's like 21. He's 21 and a half years old. He'll be turning 22 August 31st. So like right at the season. 22 years old. I'll take that. That's our future defensive tackle, and I'm ecstatic for that pick. Like I said, they ran up. They said, we cannot believe this guy is on the board still. We have to take him. So don't be surprised. Come back to this. Maybe I'm wrong, but don't be surprised if Jon Newton leads all defensive tackles in sacks next year. He has that kind of impact. Now let's talk about let's go to Brandon Coleman next, because like I said, Brandon Coleman was a name, and I'm calling him underrated because I think he has the size. If you look at the numbers, it might not be the prettiest, but I go back 2023, he did play left tackle. He played about 465 snaps at left tackle, but he had to play some left guard as well at 255. He had 0 sacks last year, 3 hits, 17 hurries. Not bad. But if you go back to 2022, this is where he played primarily left tackle. Played almost 1,000 snaps at left tackle. He played, 1,002 total snaps on the season, mostly at left tackle, though. Only gave up 3 sacks. Still not bad. 8 hits and 15 hurries. When you look at the size, 6'5", 320, he's got long arms. He's got big hands. He's got everything it takes build-wise to be an offensive tackle at the next level. And that's what a lot of people think about him. They even said here in PFF, Coleman is the ideal developmental offensive line prospect. His high percentile athleticism and measurables give him the ceiling of an NFL starter if he can improve his fundamentals. So people are saying, like, is this a guy that you really take, where we took him? I say, yeah. A lot of offensive line gurus that I follow on social media that I keep up with, every single one was so high on Brandon Coleman. And I'll be honest with you, this is not a guy that I studied and looked at, before the draft. I looked at a lot of offensive linemen, and Brandon Coleman, did make my cut as one of the guys that I was looking at. But this is a guy who could potentially be the starter next year. And people are like, oh, Josh, I don't know about that. Look, already, I don't know. So we've seen Lucas play left tackle and right tackle. I think Lucas could start at left tackle, and I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm going to give the guy a chance. He's a veteran. He's been here for a while. He's been around the league. Like I said, you could also move him to right tackle if you have to. Maybe worst case scenario, Coleman is potentially starting left guard next year. They did pay Nick Allegretti a lot of money, but who knows? Training camp's going to tell the story of who's the better guy, at left tackle or left guard. But this is a guy who has a major, major upside to his game. He just has to get a couple of the fundamental things down. But he has the measurables that you can't teach. 6'6", 320. You can't teach that. You're either born that way or not. I'm not 6'6", I'm not 320. Not even close. So he has everything it takes. It's just they have to tweak some of his game. But if you go back to that 2022 film, like I said, I'm going to show y'all some of this film on these guys. He dominated at left tackle in some games. I'm talking big games like the Michigan game, the Georgia game. He looked really good. Now, the Georgia game was ugly, but the Brandon Coleman film was not bad. Especially that Michigan game. That Michigan game impressed the heck out of me. Definitely got to take a closer look at him. But I put him on here because I think the value of him, but then also how much he has an opportunity to start. He has an opportunity to start at left tackle. If he gets things going, if he hits the ground running in minicamp, rookie minicamp is May 10th. 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then we have minicamp coming up short after that. Middle of May to like beginning of June, I believe. So he's got a chance. And then we're going to hit training camp. So he's going to get those reps. He's going to get the professional coaching now. And he's going to be around, some guys that have been in the league for a while. So I think he has the opportunity. I think he has the measurements. Now he just has to improve those fundamentals just a little bit. And I think that's easier said than done. But I think there's a chance that it could happen. So don't be surprised. Maybe he starts at left tackle. And maybe Lucas goes out to right tackle. And Wiley just doesn't really have a role at all. And something else is crazy to me, by the way. Did you know Washington had the highest turnover of any team in the league? The Commanders have the fewest percent of players returning from 2023 at 57%. And then we also led in players not on an active roster. It's like 27% from last year's roster. That's just crazy, by the way. Crazy talk. All right, I'm going to do 2 more quick draft picks, and then I'm going to go into some of these undrafted guys that I like a lot. But people are sleeping on Luke McCaffrey. I was actually at the Senior Bowl watching Luke McCaffrey, 6'2", 195. And I'll be honest with you, once again, this wasn't a guy, like I was like, I'm going to watch him a lot this week. I had my eyes on a lot of offensive linemen, edge rushers, linebackers, corners. I wasn't really looking mostly at Luke McCaffrey. But throughout practice, Luke McCaffrey said, you need to be looking at me. He made some crazy catches. He ran some really good routes. He has not been playing wide receiver long at all. He's been playing wide receiver for 2 years, and he looks like a genuine route running, like a veteran. This guy's doing like foot fire releases, but to a high level, like to the point where like he's getting leverage. He's like stacking DBs. I was super impressed with Luke McCaffrey because he's at the Senior Bowl with the best of the best. He has Michael Penix Jr. throwing him footballs. He's one hand catching him in the back of the end zone. He's high pointing, passes in the end zone on 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s. It doesn't matter. And then on 1-on-1 drills, just give up. Look McCaffrey, like I said, those releases he had, oh my goodness. He was him against like Quinyon Mitchell, him against my guy Cam Hart, Kalen King. I'm trying to remember some of the other corners there. But there's some videos that I put out. But I posted that one touchdown he had in the back of the end zone. Michael Penix just threw it up there, and he went up and got it. I was like, holy smokes. That was one of the best catches of the whole week at the Senior Bowl. Like I said, he has not been playing wide receiver that long. 60.7 contested catch rate. Holy smokes. He's 6'2", 195, by the way, so he's not small. And I know that's what everyone was thinking when this pick happened. Everyone's like, oh, Josh, we need an outside wide receiver that's like 6'5", or 6'4", 6'3". I'm sick of these like 5'11" guys. He's not small. He's 6'2", 195. And then people were like, oh, okay, I can work with that. Grade versus man coverage, 71.1. Only a 4.1 drop rate for a guy that played quarterback, for a guy that played safety. And now a 2-year wide receiver had really good drop rate, one of the best drop rates in the draft class. I think it was like had to be like top 10, top 15. 4.1 is good. Receiving grade overall was a 82.7. I'll take that. Last year, he had 71 catches for 992 yards and 13 touchdowns. A production monster. And he was taking some big hits. That touchdown late near the end of the game against Texas, it's just like a post route across the middle. He's in the end zone. He catches it, gets laid out. I mean, he gets sandwiched by 2 guys at the same time. Helmet pops off on like half of his touchdowns. But he comes up. He's like, I got the ball. It's okay. I'm getting laid out, but I got it. It wasn't the prettiest passing offense by any means. But Luke McCaffrey, even on those, hard to catch balls, even on those, somewhat off passes, he just goes up and gets it. I remember there's a touchdown. It was like a corner fade. Or maybe it was just like a little 9 route. He's just running up the sideline. I can't remember like how long it was. But the corner like goes up and catches it. And Luke McCaffrey literally just grabs it and turns midair and like falls down. And we're like, oh, it's an interception. And then he gets up with the ball. And we're like, what? How did he catch that? So I think Luke McCaffrey, and it's going to be interesting to see where they line these guys up with him and Jahan. Obviously, Terry's going to be outside. Jahan plays a lot outside. Jahan can also play in the slot. I think you're going to see a lot of these guys flipping around. Kind of like Curtis Samuel. But it allows you to really confuse defenses because you're like, okay, Jahan's outside now. Luke's in the slot. Or, okay, Luke's outside. He's 6'2", 195. There's no reason he can't play outside. He played outside plenty. So it's going to keep defenses on their toes of like maybe you have some, cross routes. Maybe you have like some mesh routes. You're going to have a lot of pre-snap motion. You're going to have some extra wide receivers on the field. I'm going to talk about another wide receiver that I think makes this team. So you're going to be able to mix some things up. Maybe Jahan's going to be in the slot sometimes. Maybe Luke McCaffrey's going to be in the slot sometimes. But this was a big-time upside guy. And last thing on Luke McCaffrey, I posted like a little a post bar after we took him. He ran a 4.46 40-yard dash. He tied with Rome Odunze with the most contested catches in the country with 22. Rome Odunze, one of the best wide receivers in the draft. He scored 13 touchdowns in 2023, which is 6th among all wide receivers in college football. He ran a 4.02 short shuttle, which is an elite number. I think only like 2 or 3 wide receivers have ever done it that fast, like ever. He is insanely athletic. And I don't want to compare him to a guy who just had like one of the best rookie seasons ever at wide receiver with Puka Nacua. But it's, and I'm not saying they're exactly alike, but I think with the physical aspect, I think he's a more athletic Puka. But I think Puka just does what he does a little bit better, obviously. And a guy, like I said, Luke McCaffrey hasn't been playing wide receiver that long. But it's so hard to not see like the similarities, and I think he can have a similar impact. Once again, I'm not saying he's going to have a crazy, I'm not going to say Luke McCaffrey's going to have over 1,000 yards. What did Puka have? It was ridiculous. It was over 1,000. But I'm not saying Luke McCaffrey's going to have over 1,000 yards. But I'm saying this guy's going to have a big-time impact on this offense. You need a reliable guy that can go up and get it. Terry's going to go up and get it and put his body on the line and catch things. We've seen Jahan make some crazy catches, and then after the catch, he's breaking tackles. He's spinning across the middle of the field. You need another reliable guy that can go up and get it, especially in the end zone, and Luke McCaffrey can do that. a lot of his routes, it was like short slant routes, and then he would like, try to do some stuff after the catch, but really wasn't there. But then there was a lot of just like throw it up and go up and go get it, man. Like, good luck to you. And he only had 3 drops last year. That's crazy. I'm taking that all day long for a guy that is still new to the position. He's just an athletic dude. Once again, he played quarterback, played safety. He just played whatever needed to be done. Like, all right, whatever. I can't play running back. Back when there were little Christians doing that. So I'll just do something else. Now, my last guy that we drafted, Jordan McGee, out of Temple, linebacker. And as I mentioned, this linebacker class, it was kind of weird. It was kind of off. It was really hard to kind of determine what was going to happen with a lot of these guys. But I go back and I looked at Jordan McGee a little bit, before the, draft and everything. This is a guy that was brought up a lot. This is a lot of people like, dude, this guy's athletic. He's a freak athlete on the field, great in coverage, good tackler, good run stopper. Like, he does everything well. He's the leader on that defense. He was like a quarterback on the defense. Last year was his highest graded ever through PFF. He had 54 tackles, 20 assists, 13 missed tackles. Needs to be a little bit better. But honestly, with that Temple defense, like, he's doing everything across the middle of the field, especially. But pretty balanced between run defensive snaps and coverage snaps, 276 run defense and almost 250 coverage snaps. And he rushed the quarterback 32 times. Played primarily in the box 470. They had him in the slot at 70 times last year, which is kind of wild as well. That just shows you like how rangy and athletic he is. People are kind of saying he's a little bit small. I don't think so. He's 6'3", 225. I don't see what about that small. Fred Warner's 6'3", 230. So Jordan McGee can easily put on 5 pounds of muscle if that's the problem. But when he does rush the quarterback, he was super effective. And he had one of the best coverage grades out of any linebacker in the draft class. And then he backed it up with a run defensive grade. Usually, one of these is really bad. And that's just not the case for Jordan. Now, the average depth of run tackle, 2.4, I'm not really worried about that. I mean, if you watch the film, this dude is like at the line, like ready to go. He's reading out plays. He's diagnosing the play as it develops. He's going through the blocks. He's telling everyone else where to go, get in position. He's reading out the play. So super instinctive. Like he's seeing how the play is developing. He just attacks. When you're watching Jordan, you see him attack these gaps quick, and he's usually right almost all the time. Or he's waiting for the running back to get through his lane, letting this lineman get clogged up with one of the defensive linemen. He's like, all right, it's just one-on-one in the trenches. Let's go. And he stops and runs. Now, I like this pick because we don't know about Jamin Davis. We have no idea what this coaching staff thinks of Jamin. But then also, could he even beat out Jamin Davis if they, let that be the position battle? I think he has the athleticism. He has the better coverage, in my opinion. I think Jamin Davis has been better than people realize. But then you have the whole legal issue. You have a lot going on with Jamin. They don't pick up his 5th-year option. I think this is a prove-it year for Jamin Davis. And I don't think he's going to take that lightly. I don't think he's just like giving up. I think a lot of fans have given up on Jamin Davis, and I don't think they should. But I think this was good for him. Taking a linebacker, I think Jordan McGee, and a lot of people think this too, I think Jordan McGee could be a future starter. Obviously, you have Frankie Lavu starting. Future at linebacker. Huge, by the way. I feel like that hasn't been talked about enough. We got Frankie Lavu as our future linebacker. Insane. And then we have Bobby Wagner. He's going to be like a 1 year. I don't see him playing more than 1 year. I'd be surprised if he played next year. I think he's going to play this year. So you have him learning from one of the best, ever. Bobby Wagner's as good as he gets. He's like our modern day, like, best linebacker all the time. So he has that. But then he has like I said, but the competition with Jamin Davis, that's good for both of them. That's good for Jamin, and it's good for Jordan. Like, even if he doesn't start next year, I think his upside, getting him here in the 5th, just like Adam Peters got Dre Greenlaw in the 5th in San Francisco, I think Jordan has big time upside to potentially start next year next to Frankie Louisville. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. If Jamin Davis is gone next year, they didn't pick up his 5th year. So if he's gone next year, if Bobby Wagner retires, it would not surprise me if 2025 Jordan McGee is your starting linebacker. That would not surprise me at all. The athleticism is there. He has the experience. He has the knowledge. He has everything to lead. I think him and Frankie is going to be a good 1-2 punch. I can't wait to see the linebackers in training camp. I'm going to try to make it back out there for minicamp, but I will absolutely be there for training camp more than once. But I just remember in years past watching these linebackers, like, what the heck is going on? Why was this our linebacker group? And it's finally gotten taken care of. All right, so let's take a look real quick at the undrafted free agents. And like I said, I picked 3 of them that I really like. We have corner Chigo Anuzium out of Colorado State, quarterback Sam Hartman, running back Austin Jones, safety Ben Nickel, tackle David Nwagwugu out of, he played at Toledo. I can't remember where he was before that. Safety Tyler Owens, defensive tackle Nora Pollard, wide receiver Marcus Rosemy Jack Saint, probably my favorite wide receiver name of all time. Running back Michael Wiley, corner AJ Woods, and then tight end Colson Yankoff, also in the running for name of the team. I picked 3. There's definitely more I could do, but I want to start with a guy that I talked to on my show recently, and that is Chigo Anuzium, aka or Chigoze, goes by Chiggy, you can call him whatever. He said 6'1", 200 pounds. Now, the thing with Chiggy is he had a lot of options. To pick between a couple different teams. And when I talked to him, he said, Washington actually wasn't a team that, reached out during the process. So he was kind of surprised. But when they said, hey, we want you, this is where he wanted to be. He said with the fit, with what Dan Quinn does with corners, how he knows he could be used, but then also he has the opportunity here. We don't know about Ben St. Juste. We don't know who the starting corner is about to be. Shoot, they might even still sign Stephon Gilmore. We don't know. But with Chiggy, he's a really good press man corner, long arms. They didn't really target him at all last year. He barely got targeted last year. He doesn't have the ball production. He only has 1 career interception, which it's fine because when anything comes his way, he's breaking it up. He's, running with it. But started out in Cal, then went to Colorado State, and last year was his best year by far in 2023. And the thing that I told him stood out to me was how physical he was tackling, but also how reliable he was in tackling. That's huge. But then also, like we said, in coverage, they didn't target him like much at all last year. He only allowed 330 yards total. And in his 5-year career, he only allowed 1,120 yards. That's pretty daggone good. And only 10 touchdowns in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons. So he's allowing 2 touchdowns a year. That's great. Now last year he gave up 4 touchdowns. They weren't like crazy big touchdowns. But this guy really does fit what Dan Quinn wants to do with corners, with leaving them out there in an island on man and being able to just run with a wide receiver. He's a physical guy. He frustrates wide receivers who are trying to get into their release. Like I said, when he jams them at the line, when he's pressing them, wide receivers hate this guy. And he hates wide receivers. So it's a good fit. But he picked Washington because of the opportunity, but also what Dan Quinn does with corners and how he utilizes them. He said, they told me what, we spoke a little bit about, the fit and everything. And he talked to Adam Peters. He's like, yeah, I'm in. I want to come here. He was talking to 49ers, the Patriots, I want to say the Cardinals, the Broncos had interest in him. There's a lot of teams. There was like 6 or 7 teams that were talking to him before the draft. And I'm sure he said a lot of teams blew their phone up after the draft. So it would not surprise me if, let me look at the depth chart real quick because I want to bring this up as well. On defense, it would not surprise me if you look at corners here. Obviously, Mikey in the slot. But outside, like Michael Davis, okay, obviously Emmanuel Forbes is going to be starting. He's got to. But then on the other side, you have St. Jude, James Pierre, Christian Holmes, former regime guy. I think Michael Davis makes the team. James Pierre, I'm still not 100% sure on. Maybe. But I could see Chigo's making the squad. I don't think that'd be a problem. There's some veterans he has to compete with here. Noah, James. I think Michael's the best of those three. And I don't think Quan's really a nickel corner. I think they could use him there, but I don't think they will. I think Quan could even be free safety. He's going to be all over the place, honestly. Shout out to Quan. He's going to pop off. But it would not surprise me if we saw him make the cut as one of these last corners. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And then real quick, let me tell you all my other two. Tyler Owens, the more freakish athlete in the entire draft. He was on pace, if he didn't tweak his hamstring, of having a perfect relative athletic score at 10. The dude's just insane. Now, the thing with him is he doesn't have the experience, but he was expected to run in the 4.3 to 4.4 range 40 at 6'2", 216 pounds at safety. He had a 41-inch vertical jump and a 12'2" broad jump. That is insane. That is unheard of. Now, he doesn't believe in space, which is kind of out there, but I'm not going to hold it against the guy. He just needs the experience. He only has like 1,000 total snaps on defense. And he's kind of played in the box. He's played deep. I think he can play deep. I think he can play free safety. And for a guy that big, people are like, oh, really? Yeah, he can move. Tyler Owens can scoot. Like we mentioned with the numbers, he's fast. But he's also instinctive. There's a couple things where he can overreact a little bit. There's a couple things, but he fits size-wise, like those Javon Kearse safeties that Dan Quinn loves. He just needs experience. And this is a perfect spot for him. Dan Quinn, Coach Witt, these guys can coach him up. I think he has an outside shot at making the team in the safety room. Let's go back to the depth chart. Derek Forrest, free safety. Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Jeremy Chin, Dom Hampton should make it. But what do they do with Percy Butler? Maybe they don't like Percy. I think they'll like Derek Forrest, but Percy Butler's replaceable. With his upside, with both of these guys' upside, I don't think Percy makes the team. Like I said, maybe Quan could be listed as a safety. Depth chart wise, I don't think it matters because you can put him anywhere. Maybe they do just keep him here at nickelback. But I think both of these guys can make it. I think we could keep 5 safeties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think Tyler Owens has a good chance of making this team just based off of his athleticism. Super raw, but take a chance on the guy. So we have Chigo Nosium at corner, Tyler Owens at safety, and my last one real quick, Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, wide receiver out of Georgia. Like I said, phenomenal name. Only 22 years old, 6'2", 195. This guy had 0 drops. Now, with him, it's like you're looking at numbers like, okay, he only had 535 yards, only 4 touchdowns. Like, what should impress me? He doesn't have the most fluid route tree. I'm not going to act like this guy's like a top 10 pick. Doesn't have the most fluid route tree. Doesn't have the crispiest, routes. But what impresses me is his athleticism, his hands, because he doesn't drop anything. He can go up and get it. A lot of these touchdowns, kind of like Luke, they're in the end zone. He's like going up and making these hard ones. But he has the upside to him that intrigue a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that wanted him as well. But I think he has an outside shot. We need some help at wide receiver. And with Georgia, you're running the ball a lot. You got Brock Bowers. You got Ladd McConkey. It's kind of like Michigan with how they ran the ball, played good defense. But Georgia just had a lot, more weapons on offense. No offense to Roman Wilson in the receiving game, but it just seemed like Georgia with Brock Bowers, they had a lot of mouths to feed. And Carson Beck, he's good. I think he has a chance to be one of the top quarterbacks in the draft next year. But they weren't like asking him to throw it like 40 times a game. So it's a limited, opportunities there, but he made the most of them. 15.7 yards per catch. And he had 34 catches on 45 targets. Didn't drop any of them. So the rest of them just weren't catchable. Not his fault. Played a lot outside, 188. He played some slot as well. But he scored 4 touchdowns on those limited opportunities. 4 touchdowns on 34 catches. That intrigues me. Can he get a little bit better at the technical sound stuff? Sure, why not? And I'll end it once again on the depth chart, looking at wide receivers. I think we could run 7. So Terry, Jahan, Luke, Dax is gone. Diami is replaceable. Olamide Zaccheaus makes the squad. So we got 4. Let's see. I'm keeping Crowder 5, Tinsley 6, Rosemy-Jacksaint 7. That's my 7 wide receivers. So those are my impactful, underrated, kind of under the radar rookies that you should be keeping an eye on, especially in training camp. Like I said, I'll be attending training camp and stuff, keeping y'all up to date on everything going on there. But these are some guys I think could make more playing time than expected, but also more of an impact than a lot of people realize. And these are some really good value picks. I think Washington hit a home run in the draft and in undrafted free agency. So let me know what y'all think. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next time here on Bleach Report.